Good morning. You all for coming to the Berks History Center today for our second Saturday program. I'm Fred Sheeler. I'm president of the Board of Trustees of the center. I'd like to welcome you here. Is anybody here for their first time? Oh, we need to bring some more first timers. So next time you come to one of these, bring a friend or neighbor or relative or anybody else you can corral to come on in. Before I introduce our speaker for today, I want to tell you about a few exciting things that are going on here at the center. Our building is fast approaching its 100th anniversary. It was built in 1928, opened up in 1929. So about every 100-year-old building or person, it needs some work. So I just met with some contractors the other day they're looking at doing some roof and the built-in gutter repairs. So we have this building built almost 100 years ago, and the addition on the back was built in 1988. And which would you expect as the worst roof condition? The old part or the newer part? The newer part is much worse than the old part. So I got to do a tour up in the attics of this building. And I knew there was a lot of concrete construction in this building, but it is concrete from the bottom to the very top. The roof, that big high-pitched roof, is all concrete. All the steel girders that come together to hold things to stress it are wrapped in wire mesh and concreted over. So it was built as a true fireproof building back then in the 1920s. It's really a tough old building, but like anything else, it needs some wear and tear fixed up on it. So that's one of our projects coming up. I'm mentioning this because it's a very expensive project. Another exciting thing we're about to do is to revamp some of the display areas. Now, don't worry, we're not going to get rid of any of the stuff that you really like that's been here, but it's going to make it more up to date in that interactive flair that you see, like when you go to like displays at Disney World or the Harry Potter exhibit. We actually have consultants who have worked on the worldwide traveling Harry Potter exhibit who are consulting to give our displays that pop and upgrade. So they're more interactive. They'll be using audio and video and are attractive to people who are the younger generation, so we can get them back in here. For our program today, Rick Plitka is going to do a tour of the museum, so I'm sure he told you about that. So please, if you want a good tour of the museum, Rick is your guide to explain everything. I think he lives here most of the time. I don't know how often he goes home, but he's here an awful lot. So today I have the pleasure of introducing David Smoot. Dave and his wife Susan have been active members of Berks History Center. They attend a lot of our events, like these second Saturday programs. The Road Ramble, which by the way is next week, Saturday the 19th. How many of you are going to participate in our Road Ramble? Good. Which anybody else? Let us know. It's a fun event. Dave is a true historian. He having worked at Explorer Park in Virginia for 11 years as an interpreter of history and also performing the duties of curator. He's done programs for Fort Sumter Park, Fort Moultrie, if I said that right, Pulaski Park, and that was during the Civil War 150th anniversary. He also worked for the Paris Island Museum, which that museum oversaw Spanish settlement of Santa Elena. That was circa 1567. And he would interpret that site while dressed as a Spanish conquistador. So now you may open these papers and take a look at Dave dressed up as a Spanish conquistador. Yeah. So I admire people who like to dress up in historic attire. So this is Dave's second program for Berks History Center. His first was on railroading. He's also done programs for the Berks Heritage Center, the Topahawken Settlement Society, Lebanon County Library, and in March he's going to do one for Leesport Historical Society. That's close to home for me. So without further ado, I give you Dave Smoot.
And everybody, good to see you. And to those of you who are joining us on Zoom, it's good to see you too, although I can't see you, but I'm glad you're here. And I don't know who he was introducing a moment ago, but whoever that guy is, I'd like to meet him because he sounds like a heck of a guy. And before we get into the program itself, I'd like to pay an acknowledgement to those people who make this possible. I'm the person who creates the program, but without a place to put it, a venue, the program is largely just paperweights, trashy paper. The Berks History Center, Mr. Sheeler, Vicky, Amber, Mary, all these people make this happen. Otherwise, I don't know what we'd be doing today, but it certainly wouldn't be this. There's a lot of material to cover, and we're going to get right into it. As you can tell by the title, Berks County invades South Carolina, Scrapple versus Shrimp and Grits. I won't tell you who won. We'll just let that unveil as we proceed. Now, 1861 was not a very good year for the United States. Lots of things are happening, and most of them are not very good. For instance, here we go. South Carolina, December 20th, 1860 says, okay, we're out here, goodbye. They are now, in their minds anyway, the independent Republic of South Carolina. And as far as anybody knows at that time, that's it. There's just one independent republic, and it happens to be those folks, the Palmetto State. But this generates an awful lot of controversy, as you might expect. And one of the people who offers a comment is the ex-attorney general of the former state of South Carolina and former representative in the state house, Mr. Pettigrew, who said, and you can see, South Carolina is too small for a republic and it's too large for an insane asylum. Anybody here from South Carolina? I don't want to offend anybody. Well, things keep happening and happening. And that's one right there. 1861 just gets worse. Other states, typically in the deep South, they decide they want to go to the way of South Carolina. There they are right there with the dates of their leaving in their minds. And so far, it's just a series of independent republics. The Confederacy does not yet exist, but it's coming. And it's coming rather quickly. But before it happens, state forces, or independent republic forces, if you will, they start seizing federal property. They think it's theirs. I'll leave that up to the legal eagles to decide. But what they're seizing amongst all this property is munitions of war, arms, ammunitions, all sorts of stuff to make war with. It used to be in federal hands, and now it's in somebody else's hands. This can't work out well for anybody, particularly the Union. And then in February of 1861, these so-called independent republics unify under the Confederate States of America. Look on the map, those deep red states, that's the Confederacy as it was originally formed. Just those deep red states. The orange states, those are slave states who are sitting on the fence. They're not yet out. They're still in the Union. As a matter of fact, some of them have had elections to decide, do we want to go the way of these other states? And so far, as of about February, March, it's no, we're going to stay in the Union. We're not going to go with these people down here. And the blue states, they represent the Union. The orangish sort of, well, yellow, orange, yellow, those represent slave states that did not secede. They stay in the Union. but things are going to keep happening. And I'm sure you know at some point what's next. Now it's hit the fan. It's now a shooting war. That's Fort Sumter, Charleston Harbor, South Carolina. There's a war on now. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And that changes things dramatically. Oops. It just gets worse because now that Fort Sumter has been fired upon and there's a war on, the upper South states, Virginia, Tennessee, Arkansas, North Carolina, they decide, okay, we're out of here. We're going the way of South Carolina too. We're joining the Confederacy. All these states up against the Union. And then North assembles a great army. They're going to put down, we are going to put down this rebellion, this revolt, this secession movement. One big blow with one big army, going to put them people down and end it forever. They'll go home and be nice citizens from now on. The battle's called Bull Run. This is First Bull Run, which doesn't get the name First Bull Run until you have Second Bull Run, which is next year. This one does not work out very well at all for our side. It's pretty much a rather substantial defeat. The South's morale is high, the North's morale is low. And now what do we do? This was supposed to end everything, and it doesn't look like it's ending anytime soon. What now has to happen? Assemble a force, a big force, in secret. Nobody's going to know we're coming. And we're going to get a prominent general, a decisive general, an aggressive general, a no-holds-barred, cigar-chomping general named Sherman. Except that's the wrong Sherman. That is W.T. Sherman, William Tecumseh Sherman. The Sherman that is picked is T.W., not W.T. Sherman. This is Thomas William Sherman. He is the one, he's a brigadier general in this photo. He's West Point class of 1836. He's the one to take command of a large force that's going to go somewhere, it's a secret, and put down the rebellion. Here's what happened. Here's the course of events. That's Sherman. And that something is up, but it's not clear what exactly is up. A force is being assembled, as you see there in the Brooklyn Times. What's the force? Well, it doesn't say. Where's it going? It doesn't say. It could be going anywhere. It could be going to Tennessee for all we know. But so far, all we know is that there is a force being assembled for something. Remember, it's a secret. Oh, it was a secret for about 40 or 50 minutes or so, because you see there, the expedition to Charleston, nobody's supposed to know that. Paper in Lancaster. Now, it's speculation, of course, on the part of whoever wrote that. There's no proof it's going to Charleston, but it does raise a red flag somewhere south of the Mason-Dixon line that us folks up here are up to something that will affect those folks down there. All right. But it's kind of sort of maybe a secret still at this point. Maybe. Maybe not. This is part of a very lengthy article in the New York Times that discusses an upcoming expedition to somewhere down south, maybe Charleston, maybe not. But it's a long and lengthy article, and the part you don't see on here because it never fit is more or less a detailed account of who's coming. Infantry, cavalry, artillery, engineers, supplies. This is the sort of information you don't want the other side to know. But for this time period, security, intelligence, it's not a thing, as you can tell. It will be someday. Today's not that day. And there's a letter from somebody called Roberto, who is with the expedition, and he sends a letter to the newspaper saying You need not be surprised to hear soon that another secret expedition has started. Oh, please. To wake up some morning and hear that Norfolk, Savannah, New Orleans, or some other important port has been taken. Red flags are all over the place now. And the previous letter, previous article, that was written by a newspaper reporter. Beaufort. Now, this is the situation as reported in our local paper, the Reading Times. The great naval and military expedition been assembled sailed from Hampton Roads on Sunday for its destination. Hampton Roads, Virginia, for its destination. I got news for you. It's not going to Augusta, Maine. It's going somewhere down south, where exactly has yet to be determined. But you can take some pretty good guesses. On the fleet at a proper time at sea is our intention to give a few facts connected with this grand expedition. Well, what are they missing? What are they leaving out up to this point? What more do they have to? Let's find out. Oh, Lord, what has somebody written? A naval landing? They're practicing naval landings on the beach? Who did this? Some Confederate spy or something? Who knows? But now we know they're not going to be landing at any established location that has port facilities. It's going to be a beach landing. Well, let's see. Where are the beaches south of here that can accommodate a beach landing? Doesn't take a genius to figure this out. Oh, and you thought this was bad up to this point? Just wait. The New York Daily Herald publishes a 3-page spread on the expedition. Who's coming? When did they leave? What's the composition? What are the regiments? What are the ships? How many guns are on each ship? Lovely stuff, lovely stuff. And it says the embarkation at Annapolis, a telling blow to be struck on the southern coast. Duh. War vessels, gunboats, transports, ferry boats, surfboats. That's an old term. We would call it a landing craft today. And in the same area, we have the naval section. The ships that are coming are named. The warships, the transports, it's all out there for any to see. And not only that, folks, hang on, there's more. All the warships has a description. What's the ship? What's its tonnage? How many guns are there? What's the caliber of the guns? And it goes on for ship after ship after ship after ship. It's a large force, heavily armed. They mean business, whoever they're going to go up against. Do you think there's more? Yep, you're right. This is the naval side. The article just goes on and on and on about the ships. Let's not forget the land section. What regiments are coming? Oops, I hit a wrong button, didn't I? Yep. What regiments are coming? Who are the commanding officers? This is another lengthy piece of that article. And it goes on to say, here are the officers of the regiments. Not every regiment is named, but the 50th Pennsylvania Infantry and the 55th Pennsylvania Infantry, each one of them partially recruited from right here in Berks County. They're on those transports. And in many of the regiments listed on this article, it gives the names of the officers down to the second lieutenants of the companies. How much more detail do you want? The only thing they're missing out is that does Sherman wear boxers or briefs? Hang on, I'm making people fun. No, I left that out. I'm sorry. You didn't want to know that anyway. Where they're going is Port Royal in Beaufort County, then called Beaufort District, in November. That's when they arrived, November of 1861. That's a graphic. And you can see the pointer. That's Hilton Head Island, and there's a fort there called Fort Walker. That's Phillips Island up there. There's a fort there called Fort Beauregard. The entrance to Port Royal Sound is guarded by 2 forts. The ships have to neutralize the fort so there can be a landing. Okay, well, the troops manning the forts are outgunned by a magnitude of several increments. Fort Beauregard watches as Fort Walker, outgunned, outmanned, outshot, decides we're leaving. They evacuate the fort. Beauregard, the Confederates in Beauregard see this and decide, well, if Walker is leaving, we can't stand up against, we're leaving too. So because both forts were evacuated, there was no need for a landing. The 50th and the 55th and all the other regiments, they have a ringside seat to the action, but they don't actually participate in any combat landing. They do land and they expand to take over all of Hilton Head Island. And a little bit further up Port Royal Sound, that's Paris. Any Marines in here? Where'd you do your boot? Where'd you do yours, sir? Quantico. Okay, well, Paris Island has the Marine Corps recruit depot for the training of the enlisted folks on Paris Island. Right about there, not too far, is Beaufort, the city of Beaufort, and that gets occupied too. So, okay, now the troops have landed, they've occupied the immediate area. Now what? What are we going to do? Well, glad you asked. Oh, and that's a graphic. It's a very fanciful graphic of the Battle of Port Royal Sound, but you get the idea. Whoever did the graphic was not there. And the paper, our paper, published a song, and you'll forgive me if I don't sing it. Just the last 2 verses are DuPont and Sherman, they went down to Beaufort Bay, they say, and shelled the rebels from their nests who frightened ran away. And the last one, they next went up to Beaufort town where they talked of so much spunk. There but a single guard was found and he was jolly drunk, which may or may not be true. Could be literary license, I don't know. But now the troops are there. Oh, by the way, that's the 50th right there. That's the officers of the 50th Pennsylvania. Which ones are which, the photograph did not say. Which ones are from Berks County? There's no way to tell. But some of them people up there are from Berks County, and some of them possibly could be maybe your relations. Your great-great-uncle, great-great-granduncle, something like that. And next we have the latest war news. You'll like this. It is, let me puff up my chest a little bit, okay? And it's from the Reading Times. It is evident that the soldiers of Pennsylvania are destined to win an ample share of the glories of the present campaign. In almost every portion of the lines of our army, they are found occupying the posts of and danger. Somebody didn't proofread that. And whether we turn our attention to Kentucky, to the upper Potomac, to the great camp south of Washington, or to South Carolina, we will still find them bearing themselves gallantly in the most difficult positions. How's this? Yeah. Take the respect for what it's worth. It's been earned. But still, what now? What now? They're there. They're also surrounded on 3 sides by Confederates, and the sea is the 4th side. It's at their back. If there's a push by the other guys, those rascally rebels, our people down there, they're in trouble. Luckily, spoiler alert, it never happened. What is the goal of going down there? It's several-fold. The Union Navy is looking for a place to establish a base for the South Atlantic blockading squadron to keep those pesky rebel ships from delivering munitions from Europe to here. And as there is a very, very deep water port in Beaufort Sound, it's a good place to put it. Also, if a force can be mounted enough to go into the interior of the South, so much the better. Something like Sherman, the other Sherman, will do a few years in the future. But do you see, that red line, that's the Charleston and Savannah Railroad, which runs from Charleston to Savannah. And if somebody wants to threaten Charleston, reinforcements come in from Savannah. If somebody wants to threaten Savannah, somebody can assemble reinforcements from Charleston. So really, somebody's got to cut that railroad and destroy it. Who's the somebody? Our boys down in South Carolina. That's what has to happen. But since we're new there, we haven't had much of an opportunity to do some reconnoitering. There's the Battle of Port Royal Ferry, January 1862. The ferry, that's the Coosaw River. And on the opposite bank, that's rebel territory. On this side, that's us. And in this engagement, the 50th participates. There's going to be sort of an expedition to see what's out there, what's the disposition, how many of them are there, do we have any big guns? They find out quick, yep, and yep. Luckily, they make the river crossing with the help of gunboats with their very, very big guns, which when activated, when fired, keep the rebels' heads down and allows a hasty and orderly withdrawal. There's a difference between a retreat and withdrawal. They do retreats, we do withdrawals. That's how it goes. And let's see. Flag of the 50th Regiment of Pennsylvania Volunteer. Union regiments typically carry two flags. One is the national colors, the other is the regimental colors. And you'll notice Port Royal, South Carolina, we've discussed that. Beaufort, South Carolina, well, it's been occupied, we've discussed that. And then hang on. The next slide should clarify this. Oh, not that Poco. Wrong Poco. Pocataligo. The local natives are the Yamasee, and Pocataligo is their term for one of their settlements. And that's a map of the area around Pocataligo. I have a close-up we'll get to in just a second. Pocataligo, yep, is right there, you can tell. And the Union forces, which include the 55th at this point, is doing guard duty back in Beaufort. They didn't participate in this Pocataligo. But the 50th does. And they're trying to get right about there to tear up the railroad. It doesn't happen because there's a little something that nobody knew anything about that was kept secret until our boys sort of blundered into, well, not blundered, but they ran into it. And they come to find out that all along the line of the Charleston and Savannah Railroad, there are tiny garrisons of them rascally rebels. They're there to act as a delaying force against any Union force that comes upon them. So they're delaying to give time for reinforcements to come from either Charleston, Savannah, or perhaps both. Now we figure out, well, that's what we've run into. And this was a defensive strategy of Robert E. Lee. Before Robert E. Lee was sent to Virginia to act as President Jefferson Davis's aide and then become commander of the Army of Northern Virginia, he was commander of the Confederate Department of South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. And his headquarters, one more, right there, that's, you may read that as Coosawhatchee, but the locals call it Coosawhatchee. That's where Lee's headquarters is, which is not too far from where the engagement against the railroad's going to be. So, didn't work out. The 50th leaves South Carolina, and they go and join forces with the Army of the Potomac, but that leaves the 55th. And the mission is still get that railroad somehow or other. So we have the second Battle of Pocataligo, 29th of May of 62. And again, the attempt is made to destroy the railroad. The graphic, it's labeled as Pocataligo. That's what the original is labeled as. And whoever saw the battle was never there. Again, it's just another artist's conception of what the battle was. But this time, some of the railroad does get torn up. The 48th New York doing the destructive part there. The 55th didn't quite make it, although they were involved, just not in the tearing up of the track. But then the problem of, okay, here comes those little delaying action garrisons from up and down the line to put a stop to everything. Some of the track was torn up, but not enough to make a difference. It's rapidly repaired. But wait, there's more. There's more. Oh, there's lots more. The 55th goes back to Beaufort District and the area, Hilton Head and such. And for the rest of their time in the area, they're doing guard duty. One of the places is right back at Port Royal Ferry on the Coosaw River. And then they leave. And that was July of 1862. But in the meantime, in between the time that the 50th left and the 55th left, the 104th showed up, and they too are partially recruited from Berks County. And I believe I have, yep, that's the 104th right there. That's a recruiting poster for the 104th. And this is their flag. You can tell it comes up more visible on the red stripes than the white stripes. But the second red stripe from the bottom, you'll see Siege of Fort Wagner, South Carolina, Siege of Charleston. That's where the 104th goes. They're going to participate in actions to at least neutralize Charleston, or if they get lucky, to take Charleston and Fort Sumter. They are stationed on Morris Island. That is the camp. That is a graphic of a camp of the 104th right there. And these are the defenses of Charleston, that massive blotch in the top, that's Charleston. And there is Morris Island, where the 104th was. And the 104th also was up in James Island, manning trenches, keeping everybody's heads down on the other side, and preparing the groundwork for an assault on Fort Wagner. If you don't take Fort Wagner, you're not getting anywhere else. And if you've ever seen the movie Glory, who's seen Glory? Yep. You've seen another fanciful graphic of the Battle of Fort Wagner. It's the charge of the 54th Massachusetts. And if you saw the movie, you know what happened. The 104th did not participate in that. They were holding other Confederates at bay so they don't act as reinforcements. Charleston and Fort Sumter remain in enemy hands until about February of 1865, but I'm getting a bit ahead of myself here. And before I go any further, I better ask a question because I'm unsure and I don't want to mess this up. Vicki? For the upcoming road ramble 1 week from today, do I understand correctly that one of the places to be visited is the cemetery, the Frisbee Cemetery? Drive-by. Okay, very good. Good, because next slide. That is a unknown. I have no idea who he is. The photograph was not labeled, but he is with the USCT. United States Colored Troops. United States Colored Troops were African Americans who at one time worked on the other side in the fields, and also some free African Americans who decided to join the Army and put a stop to these rascally rebels. Well, if you're going to the Road Ramble 1 week from today, you're going to stop by an American cemetery, American colored cemetery called Frisbee, and you're going to see someone there who is from Berks County. That's his enlistment papers. That is the enlistment paper of Isaac Cole, H Company, 32nd USCT. The 1860 census shows him as being a resident of Reading. So Reading strikes again. Berks County strikes again. He gets involved with trying to also cut the railroad at the Battle of Honey Hill in South Carolina. And that's Honey Hill. The map is fairly accurate. All that red up top, there are a bunch of defenses, Confederate defenses. And I know you can't see it, but the regiment off on the very far right, that's the 32nd. That's 32nd USCT. There was a narrow road leading to, in this area, a narrow road leading to the railroad. Our forces were going up the road in the hopes of bypassing all points of resistance, finding a place to tear it up, and they ran across something they didn't see before. The cannon at the top of the hill. I've been to this battle site several times. The road in question that they were traveling on, they're in column, they're not line abreast, they're all in column. Has a slight rise, and you can't see it from where you are until you get fairly close. And when they got close enough to see what was at the top of the hill, there's a Confederate cannon. Well, then at that point, you better disperse. You go from column to line. On the left of the road, it's a swamp. On the right, it's a bit wooded, but there's an area that's been cleared off from cotton fields between the forest and all that red stuff up there, which are fortifications. The Battle of Honey Hill did not go well, but it tied down troops that could have been used somewhere else. Now, our fellow Mr. Cole, Isaac Cole, he participates in another attempt at cutting the railroad at the Battle of, and I'm sure everybody's heard this one. You may not have heard of Pocatello. You may not have heard of the Coosaw River or Port Royal Sound, but I know you've heard of Telephany, right? No. Telephany, it's about as big as this room. But it's another place where the railroad can be attacked. And right about here, DeVoe's Neck, our Mr. Cole from Reading, he manages to get shot in the hand. It's a minor wound because he does participate in several actions thereafter. And that's the Battle of Telephany. That's somewhat accurate. The people you see there, most of the Confederates are from the military academy at the Citadel in South Carolina. They were the emergency force sent down to take care of this operation. But we're talking now November, December 1864. The war does not have very much further to go. And in February, Charleston falls, and one of the occupying units is the 32nd USCT. Berks County was there. Now, if you go into Road Ramble and you happen to come across the grave of Isaac Cole and his daughter, she's there too, you'll see another person there named James Jackson. His documentation is a little murky, and I can't prove that he was with the 32nd, but if he's buried in Berks County Cemetery in a African-American context, I think the likelihood is high. So if you go down there and you stop in and you see them, say hi, because after all, they fought for you. That concludes this program. Thank you for being attentive. We are now in question and answer period from you folks here. And hello, Zoomers, you folks out there. Does anybody have any questions?